Mary Dallas has already got a question, so we're going to get right into it. She says, please answer me. I feel something coming soon. It's myself on my own computer there. Something coming soon or in 2022. What is it? Mary, it's a bad look for me to start out saying that I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know. The Swedenborg stuff that I'm fluent in, so all of Swedenborg's insights and premonitions and the way that he taught you to look at the world, he doesn't give much about knowing what's to come or how to do that. My question for you, though, is what's it like feeling that something's coming soon? What kind of something? What are your hunches and impulses about 2022? Tell me a little bit more about what you're feeling, and I'll see if I have anything useful to say. But I hope it's something good that you feel like is coming. If you're just joining us, everybody, you've just got to go into the YouTube chat and write your questions down, and then that's what we'll talk about. Mary already did that. Other people are on the way. I know you all never let me down. Hey, Matthew Bush, happy Wednesday. And as you guys are getting your questions together, I got something to say about piety. Did we ever talk about piety on this show? Who doesn't want to talk about piety? This is out of New Jerusalem. If you want to get yourself a big, broad understanding of everything that's in Swedenborg, you could download this thing for free. New Jerusalem, there is just a tight summary of everything in there. I highly recommend. Mary Dallas says something big, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping it's something big and good, but yeah, I don't have much more. Exo says, are you familiar with Jordan Maxwell and the Chief Cornerstone? I mean, no, if that's the name of a project. I know the Chief Cornerstone, as in that's a saying that Jesus has about Peter, and Swedenborg says that Peter is a correspondence to faith, faith from love. So that love is what God builds the church on. That is a stone that it rests on. But if there's a particular project, tell me about it. I'll let you know what I think, or if I've ever heard of anything more of that. Hello, Cairo. Hi, Eric. Chris is quoting Swedenborg. The reason we do not become rational to the highest degree we are capable of is that our love, which is a matter of our intent, cannot be raised up in the same way as our wisdom, which is a matter of our discernment. Your take. Yeah, so what's Swedenborg mean when he says that? You can, let's say right now, I'm on camera, and I know that there's all of you watching. And so I can know, it's good for me to be friendly and answer people's questions well. And I can raise my mind into acting like that. But if I'm off camera and I'm cranky and I'm tired and somebody says something to me, it's harder for that feeling part of myself to always act like it knows best too. You can understand what's the right thing to do. You can know it's not nice to yell at a person, but then somebody honks at you on the road or something and you get overwhelmed and the will part of you takes over and you do the thing you didn't want to do. So it's very easy for you to know what's the right thing to do. I wasn't able to look at the camera. It was easy for you to know what's the right thing to do, but to actually make it become a part of what you want and who you are, it's harder. Swedenborg says in heaven and in hell, he would even talk with evil spirits. And these evil spirits are people who have died and are in the spiritual world and have totally devoted themselves to some kind of evil. So they love the pleasure of doing something, whatever it is, they're stealing or murder or adultery or something. And they've devoted their life to that, and it consumes them. Even those people can understand the truths, the kinds of things Swedenborg is talking about, and they can, I get it, but when left to themselves, eventually you get back into these ruts. It's much harder to move the will part than the intellect part. Hopefully, does that say anything more than he's already said there? That's my take on that. Hey, Mariola. Hi, Kim Shine. Let's see. Oh, cool, man. We got a lot of questions and stuff here. I'll see if I can get them all. People who have had after-death communications. This is Kim Shine. From deceased loved ones say that prayers help them. Does Swedenborg say anything about praying for our loved ones on the other side? Man, Swedenborg, I do not believe, has a lot of information about what our prayers do other than for ourselves. He talks about the impact that they have in us, but he doesn't lay out a direct mechanism for the helping of others. I would imagine it could. So prayer is like a focused intent. You're saying, I want to do this thing. I want to send. You're taking your free will and trying to do something with it. I know spiritually, what you think and what you believe and what you intend has an effect. In the spiritual world, even the things you love and believe create an aura that goes out from you and affects people around you. So I'm saying Swedenborg doesn't lay out a mechanism for it, but I bet it does do something. There's just too much of people saying it matters, and it's a loving intent. Like I'm gonna pray for people. It doesn't mean that you would convince God to help them, but somehow by putting your free will in that direction, you could help open up the channels. I would think so. Renee says, beautiful New Year's wishes, Curtis. Please, I have a question. Does Swedenborg ever talk about deja vu? Does it have purpose? Grateful for you and all you share. As far as I know, Swedenborg describes deja vu as a leakage of memory from a spirit that's around you. So the feeling, I've done this before, or when you swear you've experienced a thing before, it's because a spirit who's around you has had a similar experience that's translating into yours. I know he describes that. I'm pretty sure it's applied to deja vu. I don't know if they use that term in those days, but as far as the purpose of it, no, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's a more complicated subject than Swedenborg delves into, because everything is complicated. But that's all I got on that. Camille says, my daughter passed August 3rd, 2020. I have dreamed about her, but not within the last 4 months. Maybe, how do I know? I have a feeling she's near me, but I want confirmation somehow. So sorry that you're not getting to see your daughter. It's totally tough, beyond tough, to have somebody you love gone physically. And then on top of that, as many people experience, you don't have the contact, the confirmation that she's still there, that you're really hoping for. And I know that I've had definitely in experiencing loss and being around people who experience loss, there's always, you wish you had more spiritual contact. We did a show called Why Don't Those Who Have Died Communicate With Us More? And it's about that. If I would say, you say, how do I know? I have a feeling she's near me, but I want confirmation. It may be that the feeling is the confirmation, because our thoughts and our feelings are spiritual. And just like what you see and hear is physical, like you just see what light is bouncing around off of things into your eyes, your feelings is what's around you in the spiritual world, and your thoughts are what's around you in the spiritual world. So I would say like that is how you sense spiritual things, is in your feelings and through your thoughts. So that, it may not be that comforting, but it could well be that feeling is the direct presence of her. Hey Tim, hey Shelly, hi Mary, hello Eric. Yeah. Eric says his thumbnail is the combined divine providence, divine love, and wisdom. There's a huge NCE book that has both of those in it. Collector's item. Jim Gaffigan, the real Jim Gaffigan, says, have you ever taken a psychedelic substance? No, I haven't. Nicola says, hello from Liverpool, England. Hello. Hope everything's good there. I am Mark says, hello, Curtis, all the way from Kenya. Wait. My scroll thing just went way down. Okay. Which is Swedenborg books contain information about our minds / thoughts / spirits? Well, unfortunately, there's not a single book where he delves directly into the mind and treats it as a separate subject. You've got, in every book he talks about every book he's written, he talks about the mind. This is New Jerusalem that I just had here. it is full of stuff about where our thoughts and feelings come from and how they work. I would say go with heaven and hell, because that is his most straightforward and clear description of the afterlife. And as I was just saying, the spiritual world or the afterlife has a huge impact on the way that our minds work. So minds, thoughts, spirits. The other one would be his Journal of Spiritual Experiences. That is him describing very clearly how the spirits around him in the spiritual world affects how he thinks and how he feels. That one's pretty hard to read if you're brand new to Swedenborg, because it's not really polished for an audience, but there's a lot of pretty cool stuff in there. So that's my bet. I wish we should make sometime a compilation that's what Swedenborg has to say about the mind and put it all together. It's a great point. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful, though. Liza Field, thanks so much. You have other videos on this, but could you summarize Swedenborg's vision for the unfolding growth stages and purpose of creation in humankind? The Lord's divine providence has for its purpose a heaven from the human race. Heaven is the sharing of love. These are quotes. Heaven is the sharing of love. So Lord's divine providence has for the human race, has for its purpose a heaven from the human race, and heaven is a sharing of love. So the purpose of everything is that the human race would share love, experience the joy of sharing love. There's also, it talks about, there's a plan to have the entire heaven, which we're trying to make function and resemble a single person. So we work together with all the complexity and joy and interconnectedness that the little cells and stuff in our body do. So we all work together and do that. And that single person is like God's body, and God is like the soul within it. And another place he says, the universe was created so that usefulness could exist. Usefulness is helping. If you just had a vacuum, how would there be anything, how would you ever express or experience or give helping? So all of this stuff that's around us, and the fact that we each have our own bodies and our own selves and the way everything's arranged, is in a certain sense so that usefulness, which is the essence of God, can be manifest or exist. So there's a couple of quick treatises on why everything is. Okay, cool, thanks. Please bear with me while I scroll through this stuff and make sure I hopefully don't miss everyone. XO says, please check out Jordan Maxwell. Yes, I will. Nickel777, do you think an evil person can ever turn around? Yes, especially if you're alive in this world, you can turn around. This is why the world exists, is for us to turn around. If we're getting into another existence thing, this life is the constant effort of divine providence is to be turning us bit by bit, all of us, in a better and better and better direction. So there's nobody who is here that's beyond hope. So John McCormick says hello from London. Hey, how's it going there? Chris Mayer, thank you, by the way. Your spirituality versus road rage episode was great. Big arms. Hey, come on, man. I haven't done them since. I am Mark says, Curtis, does Swedenborg encourage praying in tongues? Does he advocate it in his works? He doesn't talk about usefulness of praying in tongues. Hey, actually, this relates to piety. Sorry, because you're talking about a particular practice. He doesn't say it's evil, but I'm not even an expert on what it is, but I know people will start speaking in languages they've never heard, and this is like a prayer thing. It comes from, in the New Testament, talks about speaking in tongues. Listen to this. This is from New Jerusalem, the piety section, 123. Many people think that a spiritual life, the kind of life that leads us to heaven, consists of piety, of outward holiness, and of renunciation of the world. In fact, though, piety without caring, outward holiness without inward holiness, and renunciation of the world without involvement in the world do not make our life spiritual. What does make our life spiritual is piety that comes from a caring heart, outward holiness that is a manifestation of inner holiness, and renunciation of the world that goes along with involvement in the world. So it's less about what religious practices are you doing, and it's more about having those be a reflection of what's going on inside you. And by inside you, I mean caring. So he talks about the love of caring. So caring is simply thinking well and wishing well and acting well when possible toward your neighbor, toward the people in the human race. Then outward holiness that's a manifestation of inward holiness. So outward holiness is how I carry myself. Maybe it's religious practices and things and the way I appear to be a moral individual. If that matches how I actually am privately in myself, if I'm really working to turn away negative or evil thoughts and feelings that come up in me and love thinking and being the way that I seem to be, then that's important. And then renunciation of the world that goes along with involvement in the world. So it's not, the affairs of the world don't concern me, I'm out of here. We need people to help us straighten the world out. So it's renunciation of the world, like I'm going to renounce the allure of wealth for wealth's sake, or the sensory gratification as an end in itself. I'm going to say those things aren't going to drive me, but I do care about trying to make the world a better place. And it's fine if those things show up if they're all in service of making the world a better place. So I don't know about speaking in tongues, but I know that any religious practice needs to fit in with that. It needs to be your outward piety, your practice, your spiritual life needs to match inwardly for it to really mean something and do something. And then Swedenborg says, if we all are working on that inward piety within ourselves, where we are trying to do what's good and right and what the Lord would want us to do, then all the differences we have in outward worship, all the different ways that people approach God, actually makes things better. Swedenborg describes them like different gems in a crown on God's head. So if the love thing is there, then it doesn't matter how differently you worship or you worship more or less or you're religious. It's just better to have that variety in the human race, given that we all are working from God's love for everyone, which Swedenborg says, when you all have this same love of the Lord and love of the neighbor driving you, you're really all one church, even if you have vastly different worship practices. So I hope that that's helpful. Mary Taboo, how can one know if evil spirits bother us physically in the astral realm or if it's just a bad nightmare? I had a nightmare last night. Dude, I had a nightmare last night. It's so fascinating how you can be so wrapped up in the fear and the despair of a nightmare. And then waking up, it's like, oh yeah, it was nothing. I just think that a lot of the things that bother us in this life are going to end up being, oh, it's nothing once you figure out that God's got it all under control. In my nightmare, there was this guy, and I like somehow, I can't even describe it. It sounded like something Swedenborg would go through, just like I was so trapped in all of these states he was making. It doesn't sound very interesting, but it was so distressing, and I really felt like I'm never going to get out of this. And then I woke up. So Swedenborg says that dreams are all from the spiritual world, and scary ones, I think, come from hell. But people can also be reformed through dreams. In the spiritual world, they can be. Like in the afterlife, you can have dreams that help you get rid of your evils as sort of a gentler way to do it if you're not grabbing onto them. So it could be that nightmares in this world are helping us get through our evils. Jaden says, what do you think about the current events in the world like the pandemic and climate change? And do you think the last judgment is coming for the physical world? I don't think so. Because God, according to Swedenborg, God is not going to destroy the earth. The world functions to be a seedbed for heaven. So this planet is meant to where people start their lives and then go on to become angels. And it also is like the life we live here is like an outer skin on the life that heaven is living. So, and that needs to happen. If the world disappeared, if there were no people in the physical world, heaven couldn't exist. There would be no foundation for it. It would collapse. So it's God's intent that this world keep going on. The last judgment that Swedenborg talked about was actually a spiritual thing. Hold on a second. Let me see if I have this book here. How's that for dead air? Nah, I don't have it, but if you go to Swedenborg.com, you can download Last Judgment. Would somebody put a link to that in the chat? I could try to do it. Because he talks all about what the Last Judgment is, and we've done shows about it as well. So there's a book that Swedenborg wrote called Last Judgment, but we did a video called End Times and Jesus Christ. Let me search that thing out. Here we go. This is like good, solid, hefty presentation about that. And it's going in the chat. Bam. Okay, I just posted it as Curtis Childs in the chat. There we go. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay. Man, what we got going on? Oh, I scrolled down and now I can't find out where we were. Okay, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. Louisiana said, what I don't understand, why people dress up all pretty just to go to church. It's gotta be, hey, if you're talking about piety, like how I'm gonna dress to go to church, either it can be just, I'm just being pretentious and I'm getting there to try to look at who's fancier, or I wanna be looked at as rich, then it's not really holy. But if you're saying that this, me getting on the best clothes I have to go to my religious event is a symbol of me saying, hey, I want to save the best of what I have for God, or I want to mark this occasion as special because I'm showing how much I care about God and what God wants us to do and the ways we're supposed to express his love to the human race, then it can be part of piety. So it's all in the intent. The same action can look 1,000 different ways to an angel, says Swedenborg. Okay, so AE has a question. Some spiritual traditions say we are God / can be like gods. They say because we have latent spiritual powers and come from a divine source. What did Swedenborg think about man seeing himself like God? It's a great question and has a complicated answer when you're asking it of Swedenborg. I'll let that sit while I drink some tea. It's like a hard yes and hard no at the same time. We don't have any latent anything on our own. Swedenborg is adamant that nothing that we possess comes from us. None of it is generated by us, but it does come right out of a divine source. It comes right out of God. There is a part of our innermost self that he says it actually is God's, and directly, and then the life that's in each of us is God's life. And the more that we allow the Lord to regenerate us, the more we become an image and likeness of God. So we become like God in that we are a direct expression of God's love and wisdom. And we seem like God and act like God and come to look more and more like God in the afterlife. So we can be very, very God-like, and angels will have amazing power that Swedenborg describes, But they lose it all the moment they think that it's coming from themselves instead of coming from God. So it gets to the point where you just are very godlike, but you're very aware that God is the only one who really is godlike, and you're just a receptacle for that. Does that make sense? Okay. AE says, thank you so much for doing this live, Curtis. I love it. I love doing this. I can't believe that all of you want to talk Swedenborg, so let's do it. Let's keep going. Yeah, so my resident says, have you read The Murder of Reality by Pierre Sabak? If not, definitely make a purchase to understand what's happened with our language. All right, no, I have not read it, but thank you for the recommendation. Frank Exile says, why do you believe Swedenborger? It could be fully made up. That's right. It could be fully. It's just a book, right? It's just a book. You can write a book. You can write anything you want in the book. So but I obviously seem like I believe Swedenborg. So, and this funny thing is, this is exactly, Swedenborg advocates this as well. He says that you can't just hear something and believe it's true. You have to consider it for yourself and weigh it and see whether you really think it's true. Otherwise, even religious things, otherwise you don't really accept it as your own. So the reason why I believe Swedenborg, and that doesn't mean that everything on every page he wrote, that's got to be 100% true. But then again, I look at this as like, there is an incredible amount of truth in this. The reason why, Frank, is that this stuff works. So many times I've had it corroborated to myself. And it's in a lot of ways. It's in seeing it matched in other people's reports. Most importantly for me, it's worked in my mind and my heart. Meaning, like when I have problems or my mind is all tangled up, when I read these ideas and think about life the way he describes it, it solves these problems that I could never solve. It also just feels right when I read it. I can just get this sensibility of like, I'm relaxing, I have found a home. Like, this is the truth. And there's other things about it that impress me where I feel like, it fits together so well. There's no way you could just come up with this. Man, it works. It's still fitting. These are all my confirmations. I would say none of that. You can't just believe it because Swedenborg wrote it or because I am telling you to believe it. It's got to make sense to you. It's got to resonate. You got to take it into your mind, compare it to what else is out there, compare it to your own life, see the difference. And that's the only way you're going to come to a genuine conclusion about it. So I would say I've got my reasons, and it all has to do with how well it's worked. It's worked incredibly well, and better than anything else. So, and it's the more I delve into it, the more rational and plausible and elegant it seems. So that's why it is for me. Plenty of people probably think it's all made up. So I think it's up to each one of us to chew it over. Thanks for the question. Successful way to handle anxiety and depression. Any thoughts? Well, successful is one thing. Man, we did a series called Spiritual Toolkit, where if you just search Swedenborg Spiritual Toolkit on YouTube, you can get 3 videos that we did that go at that. Man, because I've had so much anxiety and depression. The answer to that is so complicated. With Swedenborg, it's divine providence and usefulness. Like if you're in the moment, all of anxiety and depression, usually for me, centers around I'm concerned about myself. Like what I'm worried about, how are things going to turn out for me? Anytime you can get into the mindset where you're thinking, well, God's going to take care of it, and I don't care if God wants me to have a bunch of this or a little bit of that. I trust that God is going to bring me to a loving place, and all I want to do is focus on, okay, what can I do for somebody else? Think about someone, how can I make them happy? That's usually the best shield that I can get. Yeah. It's a great it's been my long-term quest is to figure out how to deal with that. And so we've done a lot of shows about it. Again, go to Spiritual Toolkit on our YouTube channel. So just search Swedenborg Spiritual Toolkit, and there's 3 videos there that might be a good start. Let us know, leave it a comment, and we can get you more materials. Okay. Jaden is also from Kenya. Matthew Bush, question, how do you get the job of being one of the 2 angels or evil spirits with a person? Yeah, I bet there's a whole something you go through, right? Swedenborg says that the kind of jobs that we have here in this world are relatively few compared to the kind of careers you have in the afterlife. One of them is, be a guardian angel. That wouldn't be so bad. Okay. Al Stewart says, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 1,000 duck-sized horses? I don't want to, if those mystical creatures exist, I fight them. So I guess I will fight the one horse-sized duck because I don't have to fight this one thing. And I don't think I'm going to win. A duck that's that big, a duck that is 1,000 pounds. How am I going to fight it? What am I going to do? Push it? Punch it? It's going to be bad, but I think I'll just take my chances with that one. Thank you for the question. Okay. Eleanor Louise says, is there racism in the afterlife? I'm really hoping no. Everything that's evil in the world exists in the afterlife, but in the afterlife it's easier to contain. So every evil, so let's say you get pleasure out of disliking a group of people and trying to harm them. That has its own pleasure with it. You have like this pride of like, oh, I'm better than those people. That is a form of hell because it's against your neighbor, right? And it's the opposite of what God is, which is to wish well to others and try to do well to them and all that. So there's going to be a hell that matches up with that particular feeling, and that feeling and its pleasure will draw you into that hell. That's what hell is it's trying to take everyone who's committed to that certain kind of evil and get them all together in a space where they can't harm other people. And so yes and no. Like it's not just right in this world. Evils just go everywhere. Like you don't know who, the next person who comes up, what do they got in their heart? But in the afterlife, it's easier to keep people who are innocent from that out of the effect of being harmed by people who have made it their life. And for people who have made it their life, God is working to minimize the damage they can do to themselves and others. Christopher says, will we have an eternal young body in heaven? Yes. Swedenborg says very clearly that the reason you have that because love and wisdom, which are what make your spiritual body, the will and the intellect, those are eternal things. And the more that you go to be like God, as we were talking about earlier, the more you come into the form of God, which is the human form and health and the prime of youth. So it's not just because it would be nice, it's because you come to more and more resemble the eternal living truth and love of God, which is what makes you not have backaches and stuff like that. What are we getting? What's our time here? Oh man, it's getting close. We still got some, I'll see if I can't make some more good progress here. Carrie Parsons says, did you watch A Christmas Carol this year or read it? Every Christmas Eve, my wife and I watch The Muppet Christmas Carol, as I've watched with my family. That movie is an absolute masterpiece. And I've mentioned that on this channel before. The music in it, it's just like, it's from heaven. It is so Swedenborgian, and it is so touching. It's there's very clear depiction. I'm sure other movies of the Christmas Carol are as well. I just haven't seen them. I just love the Muppet one so much. But it's just this obvious path of regeneration by Scrooge. And you've got spirits involved, but he learns what love is, but then he has to go through the tough times of people calling him out about how hurtful he was. It's just like, it's so good. It's so good. Yes, I did get to watch it this year. Heather Fling says, will we have our names and age in the afterlife? If not, how will that work? So I was mentioning that, yeah, you grow young according to, your body is an image of your mind in the afterlife. So if you have good love and if you love what's good and enjoy what's true and love to think and do well to others, you grow younger. Names change. Your name changes. Their sounds have meaning, particular meaning. We did this, man, we did a show called The Meaning of Names. Oh yeah, Eric Rockham says Michael Caine. Yeah, he's so good in Muppet Christmas Carol. So, thanks, Matthew Evil Sizer. Appreciate it. Hope I'm doing a good job. So the name there like here we just take a sound and assign it, like book. We've just decided to call this book in English. The sound book has no connection to this object, which is a bunch of paper bound together. It's just a sound. We could have very easily have decided this was a book. So in the spiritual world, it's not so. Every idea, like this comes with an idea, like you understand what this is because there's an idea of what a book is in your mind. There, that idea can have a direct verbal expression. So there is an exact auditory sound that is the reality of this book. Your name will be the auditory sound that is the expression of the reality of who you are, like your deepest soul. Isn't that cool? So you will have a name that's you. It's just you. Just like right now, it's like what you can just see a picture of you and you know that's you. Your name is just you. So that's how that works. And it's other people that knew you by your earthly name and age and all that, will still be able to find you. Swedenborg, I just was reading, he's talking about how he can converse with all these friends that he had in the world. So somehow that, people can understand who it is, but you get to look like what your love is like, and your name is who you really are. It's pretty good. It's pretty awesome. Okay, cool. Hi, Colin. All right. Colin Vickers says, what's the scoop on seemingly genuine NDE accounts that differ substantially from Manny's recorded experiences or Swedenborg's? I think, well, there's all kinds of possibilities. The one is that those accounts are inaccurate or Swedenborg is inaccurate in those spots. I tend to think that, like, if you had a couple of people who had never been on planet Earth and they showed up in like different parts of it in different times and without really a shared vocabulary tried to describe what's going on, you would come up with some pretty different descriptions, even if it is the same world based on appearances and those sorts of things. But me being partial to Swedenborg, what I would say is Swedenborg had a clarity of understanding about how the spiritual world really worked that was unparalleled. So it was, and you saw this evolve throughout his journal of spiritual experiences, but then his early spiritual experiences into finally his mature stage. Because remember, he wasn't just having like one NDE who was having decades of continuous lucid access. He got to a point where, just like here, in the history of the human race, ostensibly, for a long time, we thought that the sun was moving around the earth, right? Because that's exactly how it looks. It was only after we made a bunch of scientific advancements that we figured out it was the reverse. So like Swedenborg, so there's always the appearance and then how things really are. And so you could have somebody who's getting there and seeing an appearance and reporting what they believe, how they believe what that is faithfully, and yet the reality of what's behind it, Swedenborg has an inside scoop on. So he describes it differently. For example, Swedenborg talks about it looking like people fall into hell. Like it looks like they're falling into hell, but actually that's your own love causing you to dive into it of your own free will. So I think that, could be that other people have a better insight than him in a spot, but I think probably in general he just had so much clear access to it that he could see things in a way where it's like if you came here 1,000 years ago and knew like all of the physics and stuff we know today. Greetings from Namibia, says Patty. What do you think about the current state of the world? I think it's getting better. Come on. I know it's like everything is going, there's all kinds of bad stuff, but I think in general, the way that we think about life and our awareness of other fellow human beings, I think we're getting, even though there's some stuff that seems worse, overall, I believe the human race is in a better spot than it's been in. I think a couple things need to fall into place. Like I think the state of the church or of religious understanding of God and the truth is a little fractured right now, because you had these sort of domineering religions that held things down for a long time, or kind of had control of stuff for a long time, and those have really dissipated in authority, and so there's a lot of kind of confusion, and there's not a lot of people are not really in sync on like what is morality, what are we pursuing. So I think that there's like that needs to solidify better. I think that can get a little tighter than it is now, but I think overall the conditions are much better. People are much more genuinely spiritual than they had been. So what would I know? But that's what I know. Okay, One Len, are any Swedenborgians following the QAnon movement? Not that I know of, but there's a lot of Swedenborgians out there, so not that many Swedenborgians, but there's kind of so many. I don't know. Barbara says, why are there so many fake Christians filled with hate and greed for money now versus 50 years ago? As I said, outer religious stuff has to reflect inner religious stuff. It's not enough to say, oh, I'm religious, I'm a Christian. That starts with, do you love what's good and true? Do you love the Lord and love the neighbor? Okay, man, we're gonna run out of time. The Cube. What if you say you hate someone, but what you really mean is you're very put off by their words and deeds that are obviously very bad, as in not good? There's some hatred is like a joy in harming someone. It's a joy in revenge. It's a joy in despising someone. Having a disagreement or a beef with somebody is a whole different thing, because you can do that without hating them. Swedenborg describes having somebody who he had, quote, despised for business type reasons, and they had despised him because of their sort of working relationship or something. He says in the afterlife, that's very easily washed away. Because as you said, you're really just, the circumstances are abrasive or whatever. It's different than actual hatred. So, yeah. If you're not, yes. You can certainly have an abrasive relationship with somebody, but it doesn't mean that you hate each other. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always. Ryan says, I dreamt I was stocking up on cheap pastries. Good to be prepared. Okay, I am Mark says, one last question. Oh man, my scroll down. Just calm down, everybody. I'm gonna find it. Where's this? Come on. Thank you for waiting. One last question. Does he talk about things like outward adornment? The Bible says women should not adorn themselves in expensive jewelry. We're told to obey the word. Does modesty matter? So it depends. Modesty. Swedenborg does talk about like sexual modesty, in that we're not trying to, well, to a point. I was gonna say lust after each other, but he's like, ideally you find a relationship with one person and you love them, but there's a lot of times when the earlier sort of like lust of youth can actually move you into that. There's times when it can be destructive. It's all about your intent. So, but in terms of modesty, like not trying to appear rich or something, it's really about your intent. When you're supposed to obey the word, it says, don't adorn yourselves. The word is only concerned with spiritual things. The literal sense is concerned with natural things, but it's really the word of God is about spiritual things. If you look at Swedenborg's series, Secrets of Heaven, or Arcana Celestia is its Latin title, he talks about the spiritual significance of the word and how something like don't adorn yourself with jewelry, that has a spiritual significance. Man, what Bible verse is that from? Don't adorn yourself with them. What Bible verse is that from? Okay. No, let's not do that. Okay, don't worry. I'll give up on this pretty quick if I can't find it. Yeah, we'll show that to the Bible. It means it's about something about character. So it's all about, when you're talking about don't worship idols, it's not as much about like, are you praying when you're looking at a statue? Does that statue make you think of God, or does it make you think of nothing? You know? Okay. Alavan says he may not end the world, but we can be ended like the dinos. Yeah, we got to take care of ourselves. I mean, we really have, just back to will the world be destroyed? I mean, we have a lot of power to destroy ourselves. We can destroy ourselves spiritually. All of evil came into existence because we misused our abilities for freedom and rationality. So we could certainly, God's not going to be able to stop us if we're determined to if we're going to mess ourselves up, if we really want that, we can have things go in a way God doesn't want them to go. Would much rather they not go. He's always going to bend it towards as much good as it can, but there's always going to be attrition when you're going into evil with your whole heart. Hey, I'm so sorry, everyone. I've got to go now. Kim Shine says, don't adorn yourself could mean watch out for the love of worldly things. Yeah. Right. So it's something about morality, something about the human heart. Sorry, everybody, I've got to go. I didn't get to a lot of these questions. It's so cool that there's a lot of you watching and asking. Seriously, once this is done, or if you're just tuning in and now watching, leave them in the comment section. We got a whole team of really knowledgeable Swedenborgians, many who know these books better than I, who can get to and answer those. I can answer any particular questions you have for me there. And let's continue this on. We'll do this again next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody. Been super fun. Thank you for your insightful questions and the great chat. And I'm excited about all of you continuing to grow spiritually and taking that wisdom out into the world. Thanks, everybody. Let me just close this on my phone.